Sexual Violence Prevention Project. Overview.
Sexual assault, relationship violence, stalking, and harassment are a common concern on college campuses across the country, and that includes here at Dartmouth as well, where many students in our community have experienced harm by others in our community. Until recently, prevention efforts have focused solely on awareness and risk reduction strategies. Where we used to teach women how to avoid being harmed and keep themselves safe by giving them a long list of things not to do to avoid being harmed. Those things included not walking at night, covering your drink, not wearing certain kinds of clothes or headphones when running, among other things. But after decades of telling women how to avoid being assaulted by men, incidents of sexual violence have not decreased. These strategies aren't effective. These strategies put the responsibility for stopping the harm on those experiencing it. It also excluded the idea that both men and non-binary folks can and do experience sexual violence as well.
Following awareness and risk reduction, broad prevention strategies shifted to targeting men. The belief was that if men were told things like to get consent and no means no and not sexually assault women, then they wouldn't do it, and rates of sexual violence would decrease. This wasn't an effective strategy either. While the majority of sexual assault is committed by men, most men do not and will never commit an act of sexual violence. This strategy alienated men by treating them as potential perpetrators instead of as part of the solution. Fast forward to today, and Dartmouth's prevention strategy, called the Sexual Violence Prevention Project, or SVPP, our approach is that every person in our community has a role to play in preventing sexual violence. In order to positively shift the culture, we need action from everyone. Research supports that prevention happens when people replace harmful behaviors with positive ones. Through the SVPP, all Dartmouth students engage in a 4-year sexual violence prevention curriculum aimed at strengthening student skills toward action and positive behavior change on both an individual and community level. Based on all the available research across multiple disciplines, we have identified 4 behaviors or outcomes aimed to change our culture and prevent sexual violence. By engaging with the SVPP, Dartmouth students will ideally cultivate and strengthen their skills to use the resources if needed and support those who have been impacted by sexual assault, relationship violence, stalking, or harassment, develop positive relationships and positive sexual behavior, use their power in positive ways to foster equity and belonging, and check in and step in across the spectrum of harm to prevent sexual violence. Prevention research indicates that in order to learn or strengthen a behavior, people need multiple opportunities to engage with the content. Just like studying for a class or learning to play an instrument or improving your athletic performance. Learning new skills and behaviors takes repetition and practice. Each year, to strengthen their prevention skills, students will engage with multiple SVPP components that align with the 4 outcomes and build upon the knowledge and skills acquired in the previous year. For example, to enhance student skills in the first outcome, to use the resources if needed and support those impacted by sexual violence, in their SVPP first year experience, students will begin developing foundational skills to support someone who has experienced sexual violence by learning to identify and differentiate the resources around sexual violence and how each resource may be helpful in different situations, and identifying the benefits and barriers to reporting an incident or reaching out for help. In their sophomore and junior years, students will bolster their interpersonal skills around active listening, empathy, communication, boundary setting, and practice these strategies through a trauma-informed lens. And for their senior year, students will enhance their support and advocacy skills and focus on using their influence and leadership to help shape a more supportive and caring culture on campus and in the world. The sexual violence happening across our country and at Dartmouth is heartbreaking. This project represents our collective opportunity to do something about it. To have a campus where no one gets hurt, we need everyone. Together, we can and will create a campus where sexual violence doesn't happen and where everyone in our community can be safe and thrive.